After hours of effort, the elephant's cry echoed in the air, filled with pain and emotion. People held their breath as they saw what had happened. A moment as rare as it was moving was about to unfold before their eyes. The setting sun painted Yellowstone National Park in hues of amber and rose, casting long shadows across the ancient wilderness. Dr. Rachel Carter stood at the observation post, her experienced eyes fixed on the clearing below. 20 years of studying elephants hadn't prepared her for the intensity of this moment. Eleanor, the majestic matriarch of the herd, was about to give birth, and something in the air suggested this wouldn't be an ordinary delivery. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us from which city you're watching us. We'll keep going. "Michael, come quickly," Rachel called out to Dr. Michael Grant, the veteran veterinarian who had been her partner in countless wildlife missions. He rushed to her side, binoculars already raised to his eyes. The other elephants had formed a protective circle around Eleanor, their massive bodies creating an impenetrable wall against any potential threats. The golden hour cast an almost mystical glow over the scene as Eleanor's labored breathing echoed through the clearing. The other elephants swayed gently, their low rumbles creating a natural symphony that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of life itself. Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her equipment, knowing they were about to witness something extraordinary. "Look at how they're positioning themselves," Michael whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "I've never seen anything quite like this formation before." The herd had arranged themselves in a perfect circle, their bodies casting long shadows that stretched across the clearing like the spokes of an ancient wheel. Eleanor's movements became more deliberate, her massive frame lowering closer to the ground. The other elephants' rumbles grew louder, creating a vibration that Rachel could feel in her chest. Time seemed to slow down as nature's greatest miracle began to unfold before their eyes. The first calf emerged into the world with surprising grace, immediately greeted by the gentle touches of Eleanor's trunk. "It's a boy," Michael announced, his professional demeanor barely containing his excitement. The team quickly noted the time and began their preliminary observations of the healthy newborn, whom they would later name Oliver. But something was different about Eleanor's behavior. Instead of focusing entirely on her newborn, she remained tense, her body language suggesting that her ordeal wasn't over. Rachel's years of experience told her to prepare for something unprecedented. "Michael, I think there's another one coming," Rachel breathed, hardly daring to believe it. Twin births in elephants were incredibly rare, and in all her years of research, she had never personally witnessed one. The tension in the observation post was palpable as Eleanor began to show signs of a second delivery. The other elephants tightened their circle, their protective formation becoming even more pronounced. The sun had nearly disappeared behind the mountains now, painting the sky in deep purples and blues. As if nature itself was holding its breath, an unusual silence fell over the clearing. The second calf's arrival was markedly different from his brothers. While Oliver had emerged strong and active, this tiny creature barely moved. Rachel and Michael exchanged worried glances, their combined decades of experience telling them that the next few hours would be crucial. Eleanor's reaction to her second son, whom they would name Theo, was heartbreaking in its tenderness. She gently touched him with her trunk, encouraging him to move, to breathe, to live. The other elephants maintained their protective circle, but their rumbles had changed tone, becoming softer, almost like a lullaby. As darkness began to settle over Yellowstone, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were witnessing the beginning of an extraordinary story. The contrast between the two newborn calves was striking, Oliver already attempting to stand on wobbly legs, while Theo remained unusually still, protected by his mother's watchful presence. "We need to monitor them closely," Michael said, his voice low and serious. "The next few days will be critical." Rachel nodded, knowing that their regular observation protocols would need to be modified to accommodate this unique situation. As she watched Eleanor tenderly caring for both her calves, she couldn't help but wonder about the challenges that lay ahead. The first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, twinkling down on the remarkable scene below. In the distance, a wolf howled, its cry carrying across the vast expanse of Yellowstone, a reminder of the wild and unpredictable nature of this place. Rachel settled in for what would be the first of many long nights, knowing that the story of Eleanor and her twins was just beginning. The dawn broke over Yellowstone with a golden intensity that seemed to set the morning dew ablaze. Dr. Rachel Carter watched through her binoculars as Eleanor carefully divided her attention between her two newborns. Oliver, the stronger of the twins, had already mastered the art of walking, albeit with the endearing awkwardness typical of baby elephants. Theo, however, remained concerning still, his tiny frame barely visible in the protective shadow of his mother. "Something's approaching," Dr. Michael Grant murmured, pointing to the edge of the clearing. Through the morning mist, a young female elephant emerged, Lily, Eleanor's older daughter. The team had been monitoring her behavior since the births, knowing that sibling reactions could be unpredictable in such unusual circumstances. Lily's presence immediately changed the dynamic of the scene. She moved with an air of restless energy, her trunk swaying in what the researchers recognized as a sign of agitation. The other elephants in the herd shifted uneasily, creating subtle ripples in their usually harmonious formation. "Look at her body language," Rachel whispered to Michael, making quick notes in her journal. "She's displaying signs of territorial behavior." Indeed, Lily's movements seemed deliberately intimidating as she circled her new siblings, paying particular attention to Theo's vulnerable form. Eleanor watched her daughter carefully, her maternal instincts clearly torn between protecting her newborns and maintaining peace within the family unit. Oliver, oblivious to the tension, attempted to approach his older sister with typical infant curiosity. Lily's reaction was gentle enough with him, but her behavior toward Theo was markedly different. The morning progressed, and the team observed a pattern emerging. Whenever Theo attempted to nurse or rest near a water source, Lily would subtly position herself between him and the resource. Her actions weren't overtly aggressive, but the intent was clear. She was establishing a hierarchy, and Theo was at the bottom. "This is concerning," Michael noted, his veterinary expertise adding weight to his words. "Theo's already struggling. If he can't access adequate nutrition and water..." He left the sentence unfinished, but Rachel understood the implications all too well. The tension reached a crescendo during the late morning hours. As Eleanor led her twins to a shallow pool for their first proper drink, Lily suddenly charged forward. The movement sent the smaller elephant scrambling, and for a heart-stopping moment, Theo's tiny form disappeared in the chaos of massive legs and swirling dust. Eleanor's reaction was immediate and decisive. Her trumpet of warning echoed across the valley, causing birds to take flight from distant trees. She quickly positioned herself between Lily and the twins, her massive frame leaving no doubt about her protective stance. The other elephants in the herd immediately formed a protective circle around the babies, their ancient instincts kicking in to preserve the youngest members of their family. Rachel and Michael watched in tense silence as the family drama unfolded. Lily stood her ground for several long moments, her trunk raised in what appeared to be defiance. But gradually, under her mother's unwavering gaze, she began to back away. The tension in the air slowly dissipated, though it didn't disappear entirely. "We need to document this carefully," Rachel said, her voice thick with emotion. "This kind of sibling dynamic in conjunction with twin births, it's unprecedented." She couldn't help but feel a deep connection to this unfolding drama, recognizing the universal struggles of family adaptation and acceptance. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Eleanor's exhaustion became increasingly evident. Caring for twins was clearly taking its toll, and now she had to manage Lily's unpredictable behavior as well. The matriarch's movements were slower, her vigilance showing signs of strain. The research team decided to set up a second observation post to ensure round-the-clock monitoring of the situation. They couldn't interfere directly. That was a cardinal rule of wildlife research. But they could document every detail, building a comprehensive picture of this extraordinary family dynamic. In the afternoon heat, Lily retreated to the shade of a large tree, watching from a distance as Eleanor tended to her new siblings. Her eyes never left Theo's struggling form, and there was something in her gaze that the researchers couldn't quite decipher. Was it jealousy, concern, or perhaps a mixture of both? As the day drew to a close, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching more than just animal behavior. They were witnessing a complex family drama that would test the bonds of love, loyalty, and survival in ways none of them could predict. The morning calm at Yellowstone's research station was shattered by an urgent knock on Dr. Rachel Carter's office door. Tom Parker, one of the junior rangers, burst in, his face flushed with concern. "Dr. Carter, we have a situation," he said, holding up his phone. On the screen was a series of photographs, crystal-clear images of Oliver and Theo, taken just days after their birth. Rachel's heart sank as she scrolled through the social media post. The images had already accumulated thousands of shares and comments, with news outlets beginning to pick up the story. "Who took these?" she demanded, although she already had a sinking feeling about the answer. "Jason from the night shift admitted it was him," Tom replied, shifting uncomfortably. He said he just wanted to share the miracle with his family, but someone in his network must have shared it further. The implications of this breach were enormous, and Rachel knew they needed to act quickly. Dr. Michael Grant joined them, his usual calm demeanor tensed with worry as he reviewed the viral posts. "This changes everything," he said, pulling up the park's security protocols on his computer. "We need to implement additional protective measures immediately." The team spent the morning in emergency meetings with park administration. New security protocols were established, and additional rangers were assigned to patrol the area. But the damage was already done. The world now knew about the rare elephant twins of Yellowstone. Out in the field, the atmosphere had changed subtly but significantly. Rachel noticed unfamiliar vehicles parked at the park's outlying areas, their occupants equipped with long-range cameras. Wildlife photographers had always been part of Yellowstone's landscape, but this felt different, more intrusive. Eleanor seemed to sense the change as well. The matriarch had become more protective, keeping her twins closer to the center of the herd. Lily, surprisingly, had begun to show signs of protective behavior too, though her relationship with Theo remained complicated. She would position herself between approaching vehicles and her younger siblings, her massive frame creating a living shield. During the afternoon patrol, Rachel and Michael made a disturbing discovery. Fresh human footprints marked the mud near one of the herd's favorite watering holes, footprints that shouldn't have been there. The tracks indicated that someone had been observing the elephants from dangerously close range during the night. "Look at this," Michael said, pointing to disturbed vegetation nearby. "They're setting up hidden observation points." The professional nature of these hideouts suggested something more concerning than enthusiastic wildlife photographers. Rachel documented everything meticulously, her hands shaking slightly as she photographed the evidence. Back at the research station, the team implemented new security measures. Drone surveillance was established to monitor the herd's territory, and infrared cameras were installed at key points throughout the area. The park administration issued strict guidelines about sharing information related to the elephant family. As evening approached, Rachel observed Eleanor leading her family to a new resting place, one further from the usual tourist routes. The matriarch's intelligence never ceased to amaze her. Somehow Eleanor seemed to understand that they needed to be more cautious now. Theo had shown small signs of improvement over the past days, but he remained vulnerable. His struggles to keep up with the herd were evident, and any additional stress could prove dangerous to his fragile health. Oliver, on the other hand, continued to thrive, his playful nature a stark contrast to his twins' cautious movements. The sunset brought new worries as the security team reported unauthorized movement along the park's less monitored boundaries. Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were now in a race against time. The viral photos had inadvertently created a spotlight that threatened to disrupt the delicate balance of this extraordinary family. "We need to be prepared for anything," Michael said as they reviewed the day's security footage. The screens showed multiple angles of the elephant family's territory, now under constant surveillance. "The next few weeks will be crucial." As darkness fell over Yellowstone, Rachel watched Eleanor gathering her children close, creating a protective formation that had evolved over millions of years. But in this modern age, with technology and human curiosity creating new threats, would ancient instincts be enough to keep this remarkable family safe? The night shift took their positions, equipped with new protocols and emergency procedures. Meanwhile, in the digital world, the images of Oliver and Theo continued to spread, their story capturing hearts worldwide. But at what cost to their safety? The first signs were subtle, a slight wheeze in Theo's breathing, barely noticeable to anyone but the most trained observers. "Doctor." Michael Grant, however, knew better than to ignore even the slightest change in the vulnerable young elephant's condition. Standing at the observation post in the early morning light, He focused his binoculars on Theo's small form, his experienced eyes noting every detail. "Rachel, come look at this," he called to Dr. Carter, who was reviewing the night's security footage. "His breathing pattern has changed." Through their high-powered lenses, they could see Theo's chest rising and falling with increasing effort, each breath seeming to require more energy than the last. Eleanor had noticed too. The maternal instinct that had guided her species for millennia told her something was wrong with her smaller son. She kept him closer than ever, her trunk frequently checking his temperature and breathing. Oliver, meanwhile, bounded around them with characteristic enthusiasm, unaware of his twin's deteriorating condition. "We need to intervene," Michael announced, his voice carrying the weight of 20 years of veterinary experience. "If this is what I think it is, a respiratory infection, we can't wait and hope it resolves itself." Rachel nodded grimly, knowing what this meant. Treating a baby elephant in the wild was incredibly risky, especially with the herd's current heightened state of alertness. The team spent the morning preparing for the intervention. They needed to be strategic. One wrong move could spook the herd and make treatment impossible. Michael carefully prepared the medication, knowing he would have only one chance to administer it correctly. Lily, who had been showing increasing signs of protectiveness toward her siblings, presented an unexpected challenge. She positioned herself between the approaching medical team and her family, her ears spread wide in a display of warning. The researchers had to revise their approach multiple times, watching and waiting for the right moment. As the day progressed, Theo's condition worsened. His breathing became more labored and his movements grew increasingly lethargic. Eleanor's distress was palpable, her low rumbling calls carrying notes of anxiety that made even the most seasoned researchers emotional. "We have to act now," Michael insisted as the afternoon light began to fade. The team had developed a careful plan. They would use Eleanor's evening trip to the watering hole as their opportunity. It was their best chance to get close enough without causing unnecessary stress to the herd. The moment arrived as the sun began to set. Eleanor led her family to their usual evening drinking spot, the golden light casting long shadows across the landscape. Michael moved forward slowly, his movements calm and deliberate. The other researchers positioned themselves strategically, ready to assist if needed. The tension in the air was electric as Michael approached. Eleanor watched him intently, her trunk raised slightly, not in aggression, but in cautious observation. Years of limited human interaction had built a fragile trust, but this was testing its limits. Lily made a sudden movement forward, but surprisingly, it wasn't to challenge the approaching veterinarian. Instead, she positioned herself between her family and a group of distant photographers who had been trying to capture the scene. This unexpected assistance gave Michael the moment he needed. With swift, professional precision, he administered the medication to Theo. The young elephant barely reacted, perhaps too weak to protest. Eleanor remained remarkably calm, as if understanding that this human intervention was meant to help her struggling son. "It's done," Michael whispered as he backed away slowly. "Now we wait." The next few hours would be crucial in determining whether the treatment would take effect. The team set up additional observation posts, preparing for an all-night vigil. As darkness settled over Yellowstone, the elephant family settled into their resting formation. Eleanor kept Theo close, her trunk gently stroking his side, monitoring his breathing. Oliver curled up nearby while Lily maintained her vigilant watch from a slight distance. The research team worked in shifts through the night, their infrared equipment allowing them to monitor Theo's condition in the darkness. Every small improvement was noted, every change in breathing pattern documented. Michael refused to leave, his dedication to his young patient unwavering. Dawn approached with agonizing slowness, each hour marked by the collective hope of everyone involved in this desperate effort to save one small elephant's life. The morning would reveal whether their intervention had been successful and whether Theo would have the strength to continue his remarkable journey. The sky over Yellowstone darkened ominously, heavy clouds rolling in from the west like an advancing army. Dr. Rachel Carter stood at the research station's window, watching as the first massive drops of rain began to fall. The weather service had warned of an approaching storm system, but this looked far more severe than anyone had anticipated. "The barometric pressure is dropping rapidly," Dr. Michael Grant announced, his eyes fixed on the monitoring equipment. "This is going to be worse than we thought." The wind had already picked up considerably, causing the ancient trees surrounding the station to sway and creak in protest. Through the growing storm, they could see Eleanor's herd huddled together, trying to shield the twins from the strengthening gusts. Theo, still recovering from his respiratory infection, pressed close to his mother's side, while Oliver, ever the adventurous one, seemed more curious than concerned about the changing weather. The first crack of thunder sent shivers through the valley. The sound was deafening, echoing off the mountains and causing a ripple of unease through the elephant herd. Rain began to fall in earnest now, thick sheets of water that reduced visibility to mere feet. "We need to maintain visual contact," Rachel insisted, despite the deteriorating conditions. The team quickly deployed their weather-resistant cameras and tracking equipment, determined not to lose sight of the vulnerable family in these dangerous conditions. The storm intensified with frightening speed. Lightning split the sky in brilliant forks, illuminating the scene in stark flashes. The research team watched in horror as small streams began to form across the valley floor, the water running in ever-widening rivulets between the trees. Eleanor's experience showed in her leadership. She began guiding her family toward higher ground, away from the rapidly forming waterways. Lily, showing surprising maturity, helped shepherd her younger siblings through the treacherous conditions. Then came the moment that would haunt them all. During a particularly violent gust of wind, a massive branch crashed down near the herd. The elephants scattered instinctively, their usual orderly formation breaking apart in the chaos. When the dust and rain cleared, Oliver was nowhere to be seen. Eleanor's cry of distress pierced through the storm's roar. Her trumpet calls, filled with desperate maternal concern, echoed across the valley as she searched frantically for her missing son. Theo remained close to her side, trembling not just from the cold but from the absence of his twin. The research team sprang into action, deploying every available resource to locate the missing elephant calf. Through the howling wind and stinging rain, they coordinated their efforts with the park rangers, using thermal imaging equipment to scan the area. Eleanor's calls grew more intense, her trunk raised high into the rain-filled air as she trumpeted her distress. The other elephants joined in, their collective voices creating a haunting chorus that seemed to challenge the storm itself. Lily, despite her previous ambivalence, appeared particularly agitated by her brother's disappearance. Hours passed like centuries as the search continued through the worsening conditions. The rain had turned much of the ground to treacherous mud, and small landslides began to appear on the steeper slopes. The research team worked tirelessly, knowing that every minute counted in finding the young elephant. Through their thermal imaging equipment, they caught glimpses of wildlife seeking shelter from the storm. Deer huddled under dense foliage, wolves retreating to their dens, but no sign of Oliver. Eleanor refused to abandon the search, even as the storm reached its peak intensity. Then, during a brief lull in the tempest, they heard it, a faint cry different from the storm's fury. Eleanor's head snapped toward the sound, her maternal instincts instantly alert. Through the curtain of rain, they could just make out a small shape trapped between fallen branches and accumulating debris. The herd moved as one toward the sound, with Eleanor in the lead. There, in a hollow formed by fallen trees and mud, was Oliver. The young elephant was trembling and exhausted, but alive. He had somehow found shelter in the depression, protected from the worst of the storm by the natural barrier of fallen vegetation. Eleanor's reunion with her son was a moment of pure emotion. She examined every inch of him with her trunk, her relief palpable even through the continuing rain. Theo, still pressed close to his mother's side, reached out with his own small trunk to touch his twin, as if reassuring himself that Oliver was really there. As the storm began to show signs of weakening, the research team watched the family reunite. The bond between them seemed stronger than ever, tested by nature's fury, and emerged intact. Lily, in a surprising display of affection, positioned herself protectively near both twins, her previous hostility seemingly forgotten in the wake of near tragedy. The aftermath of the storm left Yellowstone transformed. Streams had swollen into rushing torrents, and the usually firm ground had become treacherous with mud. Dr. Rachel Carter and her team worked tirelessly to monitor the elephant family's movements through these hazardous conditions, knowing that the danger was far from over. Eleanor led her family with characteristic wisdom, carefully choosing their path through the altered landscape. The twins stayed close to their mother, with Oliver showing remarkable resilience after his ordeal during the storm. Theo, still fragile but improving, struggled more with the challenging terrain. But it was Lily whose behavior drew the researchers' most intense interest. "Look at how she's positioning herself," Michael observed, pointing to the young female elephant. Lily had taken up a strategic position between the twins and any potential hazards, her previous aggression replaced by an almost maternal vigilance. The change in her demeanor was striking, as if Oliver's near loss during the storm had awakened something profound within her. The family's journey through the waterlogged valley became increasingly treacherous as the day progressed. The storm's runoff had created new channels of fast-moving water, forcing them to carefully navigate around these unexpected obstacles. Eleanor's experience guided them safely through most challenges, but the real test of their family bonds was yet to come. As dusk approached, the herd needed to cross a section of the valley where multiple streams had converged into a powerful flow of muddy water. Eleanor tested each step carefully, her trunk probing the ground before committing her weight. The twins followed close behind, with Lily watching their every move. The crossing seemed to be proceeding safely until a sudden surge of water, carrying debris from upstream, caught them by surprise. The muddy torrent swept through with unexpected force, threatening to separate the family. Theo, still weak from his illness, stumbled in the rushing water. What happened next left the research team in awe. Without hesitation, Lily lunged forward, positioning her massive body between Theo and the strongest part of the current. Using her strength and bulk, she created a protective barrier, allowing her smaller brother to regain his footing in the calmer water behind her. "This is remarkable," Rachel whispered, frantically documenting the scene. "This level of protective behavior from a sibling, it's unprecedented in our observations." The team watched as Lily maintained her position, even as the cold water buffeted against her sides, refusing to move until Theo was safely across. Eleanor trumpeted in apparent approval of her daughter's actions, the sound carrying across the valley like a celebration of this newfound family unity. Oliver, already safely across, bounced excitedly on the bank, his energy a stark contrast to the tense moments just past. The incident marked a turning point in Lily's relationship with her siblings, particularly Theo. Throughout the evening, she remained close to the twins, her presence no longer threatening but protective. When the family settled for the night, she positioned herself where she could keep watch over both her younger brothers. The research team worked late into the night, reviewing footage of the day's events and updating their behavioral records. "This changes everything we thought we knew about sibling dynamics in elephant families," Rachel noted, her excitement evident despite her exhaustion. Michael nodded in agreement. "It's not just about protection, it's about adaptation and emotional growth. Lily's transformation shows a level of emotional intelligence that even we hadn't fully appreciated." The team had witnessed not just a physical rescue, but a profound shift in family dynamics. As the moon rose over Yellowstone, casting silver light across the still wet landscape, the elephant family rested in a closer formation than ever before. Lily's enormous form created a windbreak for her smaller siblings, her trunk occasionally reaching out to check on them during the night. The research station hummed with activity as the team continued their observations. Through their night vision equipment, they could see how the family's sleeping arrangement had changed. Where once Lily had maintained her distance, she now seemed to find comfort in her protective role. Eleanor's occasional rumbles of contentment suggested she approved of this new family dynamic. Her daughter had grown from a potential threat to her youngest son into his fierce protector, demonstrating the remarkable capacity for change and emotional growth that made these creatures so extraordinary. The stars wheeled overhead as the night deepened, their light reflecting off the waterlogged landscape below. In the quiet hours, the team could hear the soft sounds of the elephant family breathing in unison, their bonds strengthened by the day's events, but none of them could have predicted how crucial this newly forged family unity would become in facing the challenges that still lay ahead. The sun had long since set over Yellowstone when the first alarm was triggered. In the dimly lit monitoring station, Dr. Rachel Carter jolted upright as multiple security sensors began flashing red. The infrared cameras showed several unauthorized vehicles approaching the restricted area where Eleanor and her family usually rested. "Michael, we have movement in Sector 7, she radioed to Dr. Grant, who was conducting his evening checks on Theo's recovery. The response was immediate. Park rangers were already mobilizing, their vehicles moving silently through the darkness, with lights off to avoid alerting the intruders. Through the sophisticated monitoring equipment, they could see Eleanor's herd already responding to the disturbance. The matriarch's acute senses had detected the approaching threat before even the security systems. She was gathering her family, using low-frequency rumbles to communicate urgency without causing panic. Lily, continuing her newfound protective role, quickly moved to flank the twins. Oliver, usually playful even at night, seemed to sense the tension and stayed unusually close to his mother. Theo, still recovering but stronger than before, pressed close to Eleanor's side. The night air crackled with tension as park security coordinated their response. Rachel watched through multiple camera feeds as the situation unfolded. The intruders were moving with practiced precision, using the darkness and terrain to their advantage. Their intentions were clear. They were heading directly for the elephant family's location. Suddenly, the quiet night erupted into chaos. Warning shots from the park rangers pierced the air, their sound echoing across the valley. The elephant herd, startled by the sudden noise, began to move rapidly. Eleanor's trumpeting call cut through the darkness, urging her family to follow her to safety. In the confusion, the herd's usually orderly formation scattered. The research team watched in horror as the family became separated in the darkness. Theo, still not as strong or quick as his siblings, struggled to keep up with the rapid movement. The rough terrain, made worse by the recent storm, added to the challenge. Eleanor's distress was evident in her calls, desperate trumpeting that echoed through the valley as she tried to gather her scattered family. Through the infrared cameras, Rachel could see Lily making a crucial decision. The young elephant positioned herself between the approaching threat and her vulnerable brother, using her body as a shield while simultaneously guiding him toward safety. The park rangers moved swiftly to contain the situation, their vehicles converging on the intruders from multiple directions. The sound of engines and voices filled the night air, creating a cacophony that seemed to shake the very ground. In the midst of this chaos, Oliver had become separated from the group, but this time his sister was ready. Lily demonstrated remarkable presence of mind, managing to guide both twins to safety while Eleanor confronted the immediate threat. The matriarch's massive form loomed in the darkness, her protective instincts in full display as she ensured her family's retreat. The research team coordinated closely with park security, providing real-time updates on the elephant family's movement and helping to ensure that the response teams didn't inadvertently drive them into greater danger. Hours seemed to pass like centuries as the situation slowly came under control. Finally, the night fell quiet again. The intruders had been apprehended by park security, and the immediate danger had passed. But the elephant family had been deeply shaken by the experience. They had moved to a more remote section of the park, an area that Eleanor seemed to have held in reserve for just such an emergency. Rachel and Michael worked through the remainder of the night, monitoring the family's stress levels and ensuring they remained safe in their new location. The twins, though shaken, appeared physically unharmed. Eleanor maintained a vigilant watch, her massive form silhouetted against the star-filled sky. Perhaps the most remarkable outcome of the night's events was the continued evolution of Lily's behavior. She had proven herself not just as a protector, but as a crucial member of the family unit. Her quick thinking and protective instincts had helped prevent what could have been a tragic separation. As dawn approached, the elephant family finally began to relax in their new location. Eleanor's occasional soft rumbles seemed to reassure her children that the danger had passed. The twins rested close to each other, their bond seemingly strengthened by the shared experience, while Lily maintained her protective position nearby. The first rays of sunlight revealed the full scope of the night's events. The landscape bore the marks of the family's hasty retreat, but more importantly, it showed their resilience and unity in the face of danger. The research team knew that this incident would need to lead to enhanced security measures, but for now, they could only marvel at the family's ability to protect their own. The morning light painted Yellowstone in gentle hues of gold and amber, a stark contrast to the tension of the previous night. "Doctor." Rachel Carter stood at her observation post, watching as Eleanor's family emerged from their temporary sanctuary. The events of the past few days had tested them all, but what she witnessed now filled her with renewed hope. Theo, whose struggle for survival had touched everyone involved in his care, was showing remarkable signs of improvement. His breathing, once labored and concerning, had developed a stronger rhythm. Dr. Michael Grant, reviewing his latest health observations, could barely contain his professional excitement. "Look at his gait," Michael pointed out, as Theo navigated around a fallen log. "There's a strength there we haven't seen before. The medication seems to have done its job, but I think it's more than that. The family support has been crucial to his recovery." Indeed, the family dynamic had undergone a profound transformation. Lily, once a source of concern, had become an unwavering guardian to her younger siblings. She moved with a new sense of purpose, her protective instincts now fully awakened. The research team observed how she would pause during their morning walk, waiting patiently for Theo to catch up, something that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. Eleanor led her family with renewed confidence, her maternal pride evident in every movement. She had guided them through storm and danger, and her leadership had emerged stronger for it. Oliver, ever the adventurous spirit, bounded around his siblings with characteristic energy, but now showed a touching awareness of his twins' limitations. "The social structure has completely realigned," Rachel noted, documenting the subtle interactions between family members. "It's as if each challenge they've faced has strengthened their bonds rather than breaking them." She watched as Oliver gently nudged Theo toward a patch of particularly tender grass, a simple but profound gesture of brotherly care. The morning progressed, and the family made their way to a sun-dappled clearing. Here, something extraordinary unfolded before the researchers' eyes. Theo, who had always been hesitant and reserved, began to show playful behavior for the first time. He initiated a game with Oliver, their trunks intertwining in the elephant equivalent of a childhood game. Lily watched her brother's play session with what appeared to be satisfaction, occasionally joining in with gentle nudges and playful splashes when they reached a shallow pool. The research team documented every moment, knowing they were witnessing something special, the blossoming of a once fragile calf into a more confident young elephant. "This goes beyond basic survival," Michael observed, his voice thick with emotion. "We're seeing the power of family bonds in action. Every member of this group has played a crucial role in Theo's recovery. The contrast between the sickly, struggling calf of weeks past and the increasingly playful young elephant before them was remarkable. Eleanor's contentment was evident in her relaxed posture and the gentle rumbles she issued periodically. These low-frequency communications, picked up by the research team's sophisticated equipment, carried notes of satisfaction and peace. The matriarch had successfully guided her family through multiple crises, and now she could enjoy the fruits of her unwavering dedication. As the day progressed, the family's routine took on a new rhythm. They moved together with a coordination that spoke of their strengthened bonds. When Theo needed rest, the entire family would adjust their pace without hesitation. When he showed interest in exploring, they encouraged his independence while maintaining a protective watch. The afternoon sun found them near a favorite grazing spot. The family spread out in a comfortable formation that still allowed them to stay close to each other. Rachel noted how Theo's movements had become more assured, his steps more confident. The transformation wasn't just physical. There was a new light in his eyes, a spark of life that had been dim during his illness. "We should document every aspect of this recovery," Rachel told her team. "The implications for elephant conservation and family dynamics are enormous." She watched as Lily demonstrated a new behavior, teaching her younger brothers how to use their trunks to strip bark from trees, a vital skill for their survival. The research station buzzed with activity as the team compiled their observations. They were witnessing more than just the recovery of one young elephant. They were documenting the extraordinary resilience of an elephant family and how adversity had transformed their relationships in unexpected ways. As evening approached, the family settled into their rest formation, but with subtle differences from their previous patterns. Theo now rested between Oliver and Lily, protected on all sides, but no longer completely dependent on Eleanor's constant attention. The matriarch watched over them all, her presence a reminder of the steadfast leadership that had brought them through their challenges. The landscape of Yellowstone had taken on a new character in the days following the security breach. Additional ranger stations dotted the periphery of the elephant family's territory, and the quiet hum of surveillance drones had become part of the park's natural symphony. Dr. Rachel Carter watched as Eleanor's family adapted to these changes with remarkable intelligence and resilience. "They're creating new pathways," Rachel observed, marking the family's altered routes on her digital maps. The elephants had begun avoiding their old familiar trails, instead forging new paths that kept them further from public access points. Eleanor's wisdom showed in every decision as she led her family through increasingly remote sections of the park. Dr. Michael Grant, reviewing the latest drone footage, noted how the family's daily routine had evolved. "Look at their timing," he pointed out. "They're visiting the watering holes at different hours now, avoiding the predictable patterns they used to follow." This adaptation wasn't just about survival, it was a sophisticated response to their changing environment. Lily had taken on an even more crucial role in this new routine. She would often scout ahead of the family, her keen senses alert for any unusual sounds or movements. The research team observed how she would communicate her findings back to Eleanor through subtle trunk movements and low-frequency rumbles. The twins, too, showed remarkable adaptation to their new circumstances. Oliver, though still playful, had learned to contain his exuberant energy when the situation required stealth. Theo, growing stronger each day, seemed to understand the need for quiet movement during certain times of the day. One morning, as the family made their way to a new grazing area, they encountered something unexpected: a photography drone that had strayed too close to their position. Eleanor's reaction was immediate but measured. Instead of showing signs of distress, she calmly guided her family behind a grove of trees, effectively shielding them from aerial observation. "This is extraordinary," Rachel whispered into her recorder. "They're not just reacting to threats, they're actively developing strategies to maintain their privacy." The research team watched as the family utilized natural features of the landscape to their advantage, seeking out areas with dense tree cover and natural barriers. The park's new security measures included regular patrols and checkpoints, but Eleanor had learned to distinguish these authorized activities from potential threats. She would acknowledge the familiar ranger vehicles with calm acceptance, while remaining vigilant for any unusual movements or sounds. During one afternoon observation session, the team witnessed a particularly touching scene. The family had found a secluded valley, well hidden from public view by natural rock formations. Here, in this protected space, they allowed themselves to relax fully. The twins engaged in playful wrestling matches, while Lily practiced her defensive maneuvers, all under Eleanor's watchful eye. "They've created their own safe haven," Michael noted, careful to keep his voice low despite the distance. "This valley offers them everything they need: water, food, shelter, and most importantly, privacy." The research team had been careful to minimize their own presence, using long-range observation equipment to avoid disturbing the family's sense of security. As the days passed, a new pattern emerged in the family's behavior. They would spend the more exposed daylight hours in areas with natural coverage, saving their visits to open areas for the quiet hours of dawn and dusk. This strategy not only protected them from unwanted attention, but also seemed to reduce their stress levels significantly. The drones that now patrolled the park's boundaries had become an unexpected ally in the family's safety. Eleanor had learned that increased drone activity often preceded the arrival of tourist groups or unauthorized vehicles, giving her time to lead her family to more secluded areas before any direct encounters could occur. Lily's protective instincts had evolved to include awareness of these mechanical guardians. The research team observed how she would occasionally pause during their travels, her ears flicking toward the sound of approaching drones, waiting for their passage before leading her younger siblings forward. The transformation in their daily life was most evident during their evening routines. Instead of settling in open clearings as they once had, the family now chose rest spots with natural barriers on multiple sides. They would arrange themselves in a formation that allowed for quick movement if necessary, while still maintaining the close physical contact that strengthened their bonds. As night fell over Yellowstone, the research team switched to their infrared monitoring equipment. Through these sophisticated lenses, they could see how the family's adaptation extended even to their sleeping patterns. They had become more alert to nighttime sounds. But paradoxically, this heightened awareness seemed to give them greater peace of mind. The early morning mist hung low over Yellowstone's vast expanse, as Eleanor began what Dr. Rachel Carter would later describe as nature's most extraordinary classroom. The matriarch had chosen a secluded area rich in various vegetation, perfect for teaching her young ones the essential skills they would need to thrive in their environment. "This is fascinating, Doctor," Michael Grant whispered, adjusting his binoculars for a better view. "Eleanor's not just showing them what to eat, she's teaching them how to identify safe food sources." The research team watched as the matriarch demonstrated the intricate process of selecting and processing different types of vegetation. Oliver, true to his nature, approached these lessons with boundless enthusiasm. He would mimic Eleanor's movements with his trunk, practicing the delicate manipulation required to strip bark from trees or unearth nutritious roots. Theo, though more cautious, showed a remarkable aptitude for learning, his methodical approach often resulting in more precise movements than his brother's eager attempts. Lily had taken on an unexpected role in this educational process. The research team observed how she would often position herself between her younger siblings, demonstrating techniques from a perspective closer to their size. Her previous aggression had transformed into patient guidance, particularly when helping Theo master more challenging skills. "Look at how they're working together," Rachel noted, quickly documenting the scene. Eleanor would demonstrate a technique, Lily would refine it for the twins' level, and the young ones would practice under their combined supervision. It was a sophisticated teaching method that showed the depth of elephant intelligence and family cooperation. One particularly touching moment occurred when Theo struggled to reach a cluster of tender leaves high in a tree. Instead of simply getting them for him, Eleanor guided his trunk movements, showing him how to achieve the right angle and pressure. Oliver watched intently, learning from his brother's lesson, while Lily stood ready to assist if needed. The family's teaching sessions weren't limited to food gathering. Eleanor began incorporating crucial survival skills into their daily routine. She would create small challenges for the twins, like crossing shallow streams or navigating around obstacles, building their confidence and capabilities step by step. During one of these exercises, Oliver found himself momentarily stuck in soft mud. Instead of rushing to help, Eleanor and Lily watched as he worked out how to distribute his weight to free himself. Theo observed his brother's predicament and solution, storing away this valuable lesson for future reference. "They're building problem-solving skills," Michael observed. "These aren't just physical lessons, they're developing critical thinking abilities." The research team noted how each challenge seemed carefully chosen to advance the twins' development while remaining within their growing capabilities. As the days progressed, the lessons became more complex. Eleanor began teaching them how to use their trunks to test water quality and depth before drinking or crossing. Lily would demonstrate these skills repeatedly, her patience seemingly endless as the twins practiced these vital techniques. The most remarkable developments came in their communication lessons. Eleanor and Lily worked together to teach the twins the subtle language of trunk movements, ear positions, and low-frequency rumbles that elephants use to convey important information. These sessions would often last hours, with each new signal being practiced until mastered. During one afternoon session, the family encountered a natural obstacle course created by fallen trees from the recent storm. Eleanor turned this into an impromptu lesson, showing the twins how to navigate the challenging terrain safely. Theo, whose physical strength had been steadily improving, surprised everyone by finding an efficient path through the debris, which Oliver then eagerly followed. The level of coordination between Eleanor and Lily in these teaching sessions is unprecedented, Rachel noted in her research log. They're not just passing on survival skills, they're building a foundation of family cooperation and support. The team observed how each successful lesson seemed to strengthen the bonds between all family members. As the sun began to set, the day's lessons would wind down, but the learning never truly stopped. Even during their evening rest periods, the twins would practice their new skills. Their playful interactions now focused on refining what they had learned. Eleanor would watch with visible satisfaction as her children demonstrated their growing mastery of essential survival skills. The research team remained late into the evening, documenting this extraordinary educational process. Through their night vision equipment, they could see the twins continuing to practice even in the gathering darkness, their trunks moving with increasing confidence and precision. The family's dedication to nurturing and teaching their youngest members was a testament to the sophisticated social structure of elephant societies. The first rays of dawn painted the sky in brilliant shades of pink and gold as Eleanor led her family into unexplored territory. Dr. Rachel Carter and her team had been tracking their gradual movement into the park's more remote regions, watching as the elephant family discovered new resources and established fresh routines in these untouched areas. "They're moving with purpose, Doctor," Michael Grant observed, noting how Eleanor would pause at strategic points to assess their surroundings. The matriarch's wisdom showed in her careful selection of routes, choosing paths that offered both cover and escape options. Each new location they visited was thoroughly evaluated for its potential as a safe haven. Lily had taken on the role of advanced scout, moving ahead of the group to investigate unfamiliar territories. Her newfound protective instincts had evolved into a sophisticated understanding of security assessment. The research team watched in amazement as she would test ground stability, check for hidden water sources, and evaluate the density of vegetation before signaling back to Eleanor. The twins, now more confident in their abilities, approached each new area with different but complementary strategies. Oliver's natural curiosity made him eager to explore, while Theo's more cautious nature led him to observe and analyze before proceeding. Together, they created a remarkably effective exploration team. "Look at how they're mapping their environment," Rachel noted excitedly. Eleanor would guide the family to elevated positions, allowing them to survey large areas of their new territory. These vantage points served multiple purposes, providing security through visibility, while helping the younger ones develop their spatial awareness. During one particularly memorable morning, the family discovered a hidden valley that seemed to meet all their requirements for a new home base. Protected by natural rock formations and dense vegetation, it offered multiple water sources and abundant food options. The research team observed as Eleanor methodically investigated every aspect of this promising location. Lily's behavior in the new territory was particularly noteworthy. She began creating what the researchers called safety corridors, pre-scouted paths that could serve as quick escape routes if needed. She would show these routes to her younger siblings, often practicing quick movements along these paths during their daily activities. The twins absorbed these lessons with remarkable aptitude. Oliver would often experiment with different paths through the new territory, while Theo demonstrated an uncanny ability to remember every detail of their surroundings. Together, they began developing their own understanding of their expanding world. "This is more than just exploration," Michael commented, reviewing the day's footage. "They're creating a complex network of safe zones and travel routes." The family's movement patterns revealed a sophisticated strategy. They never used the same path too frequently and always maintained multiple options for reaching their essential resources. Eleanor's teaching continued in these new surroundings. She would demonstrate how to identify the most nutritious vegetation specific to each area, showing her children how different environments offered different opportunities for sustenance. The research team noted how the family's diet became more varied as they discovered new food sources. One afternoon, they witnessed a remarkable display of the family's growing adaptability. When a sudden weather change brought strong winds to their new territory, Eleanor led them to a naturally sheltered area they had previously scouted. The smooth transition showed how well they had already mapped their expanded range. Lily's protective instincts found new expression in the larger territory. She began establishing what the researchers termed safe rooms, specific locations within their range that offered maximum protection and comfort. These became regular stops during their daily movements, creating a network of secure resting places. The twins' confidence grew with each successful exploration. They began showing initiative in suggesting directions for daily foraging, their choices often revealing an impressive understanding of their environment. Theo, in particular, seemed to have inherited Eleanor's gift for finding the most protected paths through new terrain. As the days progressed, the family's knowledge of their expanded territory became increasingly sophisticated. They developed patterns of movement that maximized their access to resources while minimizing their exposure to potential threats. The research team marveled at how quickly they adapted to their new surroundings. Evening observations revealed another aspect of their territorial adaptation. The family had established different resting places for different weather conditions, showing remarkable foresight in their planning. Their evening routine now included a systematic check of their surroundings before settling in for the night. The research team's data showed how the family's range had effectively doubled, but more importantly, how they had created a more secure and resource-rich environment for themselves. Their adaptation to new territories wasn't just about survival, it was about creating a better future for the entire family. The morning sun cast long shadows across the research station as Dr. Rachel Carter reviewed the latest batch of correspondence flooding her inbox. The story of Eleanor and her family had captured public imagination in ways no one could have predicted. What had begun as a potentially dangerous breach of privacy with those first viral photos had transformed into something remarkable, a catalyst for change in wildlife conservation awareness. Dr. Michael Grant stood at the observation window, watching the elephant family in their new territory. "It's amazing how their story has resonated with people," he reflected, noting how the public's perception had shifted from mere curiosity to genuine concern for wildlife protection. The park had begun receiving donations specifically earmarked for enhanced security measures and conservation efforts. The research team had carefully managed the flow of information about the elephant family, ensuring that any shared updates prioritized their safety and well-being. Instead of precise locations or real-time updates, they focused on sharing the family's remarkable journey of resilience and adaptation. Eleanor, seemingly unaware of her family's fame, continued to lead with quiet dignity. The research team observed how she had perfected the art of maintaining her family's privacy, while still allowing controlled observation from designated safe distances. This balance had become a model for wildlife observation protocols across other national parks. Lily's transformation from antagonist to protector had particularly captured public attention. The research team received numerous requests from wildlife behavioral experts wanting to study this remarkable change in sibling dynamics. Her story became a powerful example of how family bonds could overcome initial conflicts. The twins, Oliver and Theo, had become symbols of resilience in different ways. Oliver's natural exuberance and Theo's quiet determination resonated with people facing their own challenges. Their story of brotherhood and mutual support, despite their different personalities and abilities, touched hearts worldwide. One morning, as the family moved through their territory, Rachel noticed something significant. The number of unauthorized photography attempts had dramatically decreased. Instead, visitors to the park showed a new respect for wildlife boundaries, often self-policing to ensure others maintained appropriate distances from all animal habitats. "Look at this," Michael said, showing Rachel a report from the park administration. The increased awareness had led to a surge in conservation program enrollments. Schools were requesting educational materials about elephant family dynamics, using Eleanor's story to teach children about wildlife protection and family bonds. The research station had adapted to this new role as an educational hub. They developed programs that used the family's story to illustrate the importance of wildlife conservation, while carefully maintaining the elephant's privacy and security. The balance between public education and wildlife protection had become their new mission. Lily's protective behaviors had inspired a new approach to studying family dynamics in wild elephants. Researchers began paying more attention to the role of siblings in elephant family structures, leading to breakthrough observations in other elephant communities across different conservation areas. The twins' development continued to provide valuable insights into elephant learning and adaptation. Their different approaches to challenges, Oliver's boldness and Theo's thoughtfulness, demonstrated the importance of individual personality in wildlife development. These observations helped reshape understanding of animal intelligence and learning styles. Eleanor's leadership through various challenges had become a case study in wildlife resilience. The way she had guided her family through threats, adapted to new circumstances, and maintained family unity offered valuable lessons for conservation strategies. Her story helped illustrate the sophisticated social structures of elephant communities. The research team worked diligently to channel this public interest into meaningful conservation action. They developed educational materials that used the family's experiences to highlight the importance of wildlife protection and habitat preservation. The response had been overwhelming, with increased support for conservation initiatives across multiple parks. As evening approached, Rachel watched the family through their long-range observation equipment. They had settled into a peaceful routine in their expanded territory, unaware of how their story was helping shape the future of wildlife conservation. Their natural behaviors, now better understood and respected, were helping create a new model for wildlife protection. The sun began to set over Yellowstone, casting a golden glow over the landscape. Eleanor gathered her family for their evening rest, their strong bonds evident in every interaction. Their story had become more than just a tale of survival. It had evolved into a powerful message about the importance of family, resilience, and the vital need to protect wild spaces. The control room of Yellowstone's newly upgraded security center hummed with activity as Dr. Rachel Carter reviewed the latest improvements. Inspired by their experiences with Eleanor's family, the park had implemented a revolutionary approach to wildlife protection. Multiple screens displayed real-time data from various sectors of the park, while sophisticated software analyzed movement patterns and potential threats. Dr. Michael Grant stood before a large digital map, studying the new wildlife corridors that had been established based on Eleanor's chosen paths. "It's remarkable," he noted, "how one family's journey has transformed our entire approach to conservation." The park had created protected zones that mimicked the natural movement patterns they'd observed in the elephant family. The new security measures were subtle but effective. Instead of obvious barriers that might disturb the natural landscape, the park had installed smart monitoring systems that could detect unauthorized entry while remaining virtually invisible to both wildlife and visitors. The technology had been carefully designed to avoid interfering with the animals' natural behaviors. Eleanor's family had unknowingly contributed to these improvements through their daily routines. The research team had mapped their preferred paths, rest areas, and water sources, using this information to design protection systems that worked in harmony with natural wildlife patterns. The result was a security network that protected without disturbing. Lily's protective behaviors had inspired a new approach to buffer zones around critical wildlife areas. The park had studied how she created safe spaces for her siblings and applied these principles to their conservation strategies. Natural barriers were enhanced, and quiet zones were established around key animal habitats. The twins, Oliver and Theo, had shown how different personalities required different types of protection. The park's new security protocols took into account the various ways animals might react to potential threats, creating flexible response systems that could adapt to different situations and behaviors. One morning, the effectiveness of these new measures was demonstrated when the system detected unusual movement near one of Eleanor's favorite grazing areas. Before any direct intervention was necessary, subtle deterrents, based on the family's own protective behaviors, successfully redirected the potential disturbance away from the wildlife zone. "Watch this," Rachel said to her team, pointing to a monitoring screen. The new system had detected a group of visitors accidentally straying too close to a sensitive area. Instead of requiring ranger intervention, automated environmental cues, inspired by natural wildlife warnings, gently guided the group back to designated observation areas. The research station itself had evolved, becoming a model for how technology could support wildlife protection without interference. Their observation methods now relied heavily on passive monitoring systems, allowing them to gather crucial data while maintaining a respectful distance from the animals they studied. Park rangers had adapted their patrol patterns to complement these new systems. They studied how Eleanor led her family through different terrains and applied these insights to their own movement strategies. The result was more effective protection with less visible human presence. The improvements extended to the park's educational programs as well. Visitors now learned about wildlife protection through innovative programs that emphasized respect and distance. The story of Eleanor's family helped illustrate why these measures were crucial for the animals' well-being. Michael spent several hours each day fine-tuning the security protocols, ensuring they remained responsive to changing wildlife patterns. The key, he explained to visiting conservation experts, is creating protection systems that work with natural behaviors rather than against them. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the park, Rachel observed how seamlessly the new measures had been integrated into the landscape. Visitors could still enjoy meaningful wildlife experiences, but now from perspectives that prioritized animal safety and natural behavior. The park's success had begun attracting attention from other conservation areas worldwide. Representatives came to study how Yellowstone had achieved this balance between protection and preservation, often leaving with new insights to apply in their own wildlife sanctuaries. Eleanor's family continued their daily routines, unaware that their behaviors had helped reshape wildlife protection strategies. They moved through their territory with the same natural grace, but now with an added layer of invisible protection that respected their patterns and preferences. The sun began to set over the park, and the night shift prepared to take over monitoring duties. The sophisticated systems would continue their quiet vigilance through the darkness, ensuring that the wildlife under their protection could rest undisturbed in their natural habitat. The morning light streamed through the windows of the International Conference Room at Yellowstone's Research Center. Dr. Rachel Carter stood before a diverse group of wildlife experts from around the world, sharing the remarkable story of Eleanor's family and the revolutionary changes they had inspired. The room buzzed with excitement as conservation leaders from different continents discussed how to implement similar programs in their own parks. Dr. Michael Grant operated the presentation systems, displaying detailed data about the success of their new protection protocols. What we've learned from Eleanor and her family, he explained, is that effective conservation must work in harmony with natural behaviors. The visiting experts leaned forward, captivated by the sophisticated yet nature-inspired approach. In the field, Eleanor's family continued their daily routines, unaware that their story was inspiring global change. The research team had set up a secure video feed, allowing the international visitors to observe the family's natural behaviors in real time while maintaining a safe distance. The twins, Oliver and Theo, provided a perfect demonstration of how different personalities could thrive under the new protection systems. Lily's transformation had become a central part of their educational program. Conservation experts were particularly interested in how her protective behaviors had influenced the design of wildlife security systems. Her story offered hope for managing complex family dynamics in other wildlife communities around the world. During the afternoon sessions, representatives from various national parks shared their own challenges and successes in implementing Yellowstone's methods. A reserve in Africa had already begun adapting the smart monitoring systems to protect their elephant populations. An Asian sanctuary was redesigning their ranger patrol patterns based on Eleanor's movement strategies. The beauty of this system, Rachel explained to an attentive audience, is its adaptability to different environments and species. She showed how the core principles of their protection protocols could be modified to suit various wildlife habitats while maintaining their effectiveness. The conference room walls displayed maps showing the global spread of Yellowstone's influence. Parks and reserves across continents had begun implementing similar observation techniques, creating a network of protected spaces that worked in harmony with natural wildlife behaviors. The ripple effect of Eleanor's family story had exceeded all expectations. Michael demonstrated how their technology had evolved to become even more unobtrusive. The goal, he emphasized, is to protect without interfering. The visiting experts were particularly impressed by how the system could adapt to changing animal behaviors while maintaining consistent protection levels. The afternoon brought a practical demonstration as the international group observed the park's response to a potential security concern. They watched in appreciation as the system quietly redirected a wayward hiking group without disturbing Eleanor's family, who continued their peaceful grazing nearby. Discussion groups formed around specific aspects of the program. Some experts focused on adapting the technology for different terrains, while others explored how to implement similar educational initiatives in their own facilities. The sharing of ideas and experiences created an atmosphere of collaborative innovation. Rachel led a session on the importance of public engagement in conservation efforts. She shared how Eleanor's story had helped change visitor attitudes, creating a model for other parks to follow. The international representatives were particularly interested in how to replicate this success in their own communities. As the day progressed, the visiting experts witnessed firsthand how the park's various systems worked together seamlessly. They observed the subtle ways in which technology and nature coexisted, creating an environment where wildlife could thrive while remaining protected from potential threats. The research team shared their latest findings on animal behavior patterns, demonstrating how understanding these natural rhythms had led to more effective protection strategies. The international audience was particularly moved by footage showing how the twins had grown and thrived under the new system. Late afternoon brought a special moment as Eleanor led her family past one of the observation points. The international visitors watched in respectful silence as the elephant family demonstrated the natural behaviors that had inspired so many of the park's innovations. Their presence seemed to underscore the importance of the work being discussed. As the sun began to set, the conference room filled with the sound of excited discussion as plans were made to implement similar programs worldwide. The story of one elephant family in Yellowstone was becoming the catalyst for a global transformation in wildlife protection. The autumn sun cast a warm glow over Yellowstone as Dr. Rachel Carter reviewed the past year's research data. The story of Eleanor's family had evolved into something far greater than anyone could have imagined. What began as the remarkable tale of twin elephant calves had transformed into a revolutionary approach to wildlife conservation that would impact generations to come. Dr. Michael Grant sat beside her, examining the latest behavioral studies. "Look at these patterns," he said, pointing to a series of charts. Other elephant families in the park are adopting similar protective behaviors. The influence of Eleanor's family had spread naturally through the elephant community, creating a ripple effect of positive change. The twins, Oliver and Theo, had become living proof of how different personalities could thrive under thoughtful protection. Oliver's adventurous spirit and Theo's careful nature had helped researchers understand the importance of accommodating diverse behavioral traits in conservation efforts. Their story had become a cornerstone of wildlife education programs worldwide. Lily's journey from challenging sibling to protective guardian had particularly resonated with researchers studying family dynamics in wild animals. Her transformation had sparked new theories about adaptive behaviors and the complexity of elephant social structures. Conservation programs around the world now included sections on sibling relationships in their studies. Eleanor's leadership continued to provide invaluable insights into wildlife adaptation and resilience. The research team had documented how her decisions during various challenges had helped shape their understanding of elephant intelligence and problem-solving abilities. Her methods of protecting and guiding her family had influenced new approaches to wildlife management. The morning observation session revealed how the family's influence extended beyond their own species. Other animals in their territory had begun using the safe corridors and protected spaces that Eleanor had established. The research team noticed how these shared paths had created a more harmonious ecosystem throughout their range. Rachel spent hours updating the comprehensive database they had created, documenting the family's journey. "This information we'll be studying for decades," she noted to her team. Each observation, each adaptation, each triumph over adversity had been carefully recorded, creating a valuable resource for future generations of conservationists. The park's educational center had been redesigned to share the family's story in a way that inspired action and understanding. Interactive displays showed how Eleanor had guided her family through various challenges, while careful explanations helped visitors understand the importance of wildlife protection. Young conservationists were particularly moved by Theo's journey from struggling calf to confident young elephant. Michael's veterinary protocols, developed during Theo's illness, had been adopted by wildlife centers around the world. His careful approach to treating animals while maintaining their family bonds had created new standards for wildlife medical care. The success of these methods proved that conservation could be both effective and compassionate. The afternoon brought a group of young research students to the observation post. They watched in awe as Eleanor led her family through their daily routines. The twins, now stronger and more confident, demonstrated the success of the park's protection programs. Lily's protective behavior showed how family bonds could strengthen over time. The research station's walls displayed maps showing how their conservation model had spread globally. Parks and reserves across continents had implemented similar programs, creating a network of protected spaces that worked in harmony with natural wildlife behaviors. Eleanor's family had unknowingly inspired a worldwide movement in wildlife protection. As the day progressed, Rachel observed how seamlessly the family interacted with their environment. The protection systems had become so well integrated that they were virtually invisible, allowing the elephants to behave naturally while remaining safe. This balance between security and freedom had become a model for wildlife preserves everywhere. The success of their program had led to increased funding for conservation efforts worldwide. Donors and organizations, inspired by the family's story, had committed to supporting long-term wildlife protection initiatives. The research team knew that this financial support would help ensure the continuation of their work for generations to come. Entering the evening hours, the research team reviewed footage from their long-term study. They could see how each family member had contributed to their collective understanding of wildlife behavior and conservation. Their story had become more than just a successful protection program. It had evolved into a blueprint for the future of wildlife preservation. As the sun began to set over Yellowstone, Eleanor gathered her family for their evening rest. The research team watched through their observation equipment, knowing that they were witnessing not just the daily routine of one elephant family, but the living legacy of a conservation revolution that would continue to influence wildlife protection for years to come. The golden light of sunset painted Yellowstone's vast expanse in breathtaking hues of amber and rose, much like that fateful evening when Eleanor's remarkable journey began. Dr. Rachel Carter stood at her favorite observation point, watching the elephant family move with quiet dignity through the valley below. The scene before her was a testament to the triumph of nature's resilience and the power of family bonds. Dr. Michael Grant joined her, his experienced eyes noting how far the twins had come. Oliver, once the stronger newborn, moved with confident grace, while Theo, whose survival had once hung by a thread, showed no traces of his early struggles. Their different personalities had blossomed under Eleanor's guidance, each contributing uniquely to the family's harmony. Lily, their once troubled sister, had grown into her role as protector with remarkable dedication. Her transformation from potential threat to fierce guardian had become legendary among conservation circles, proving that change and growth were always possible. The research team had documented every step of her journey, creating an invaluable resource for understanding elephant family dynamics. Eleanor led her family with the same quiet strength that had seen them through countless challenges. Her leadership had not only ensured her family's survival, but had unknowingly revolutionized wildlife conservation practices around the world. The paths she chose, the decisions she made, and the methods she used to protect her young had become a blueprint for wildlife protection. The research station's newest addition, a state-of-the-art educational center, buzzed with activity even at this late hour. Visitors from across the globe came to learn about the family's story and the changes they had inspired. Interactive displays showed the journey from those tense moments of the twins' birth to the creation of groundbreaking conservation protocols that now protected wildlife worldwide. As the family moved through their evening routine, their influence could be seen in every aspect of the park's operation. The subtle security measures, the respectful distance maintained by observers, and the harmonious coexistence of wildlife and human activity all bore the mark of lessons learned from Eleanor and her family. The twins, now strong and confident, demonstrated their learned skills with natural ease. Their coordinated movements and watchful awareness showed how effectively Eleanor had prepared them for life in the wild. Theo's occasional gentle interactions with younger elephants in the herd revealed how his own challenges had fostered a special sensitivity to others. Lily's evening patrol of their territory showed how completely she had embraced her protective role. Her movements were purposeful and assured, her attention constantly shifting between her siblings and their surroundings. The research team had documented how her behavior patterns had influenced the development of wildlife security protocols worldwide. As darkness began to settle over the valley, Eleanor guided her family toward their resting place. The scene was reminiscent of countless evenings before, yet each one remained special to the research team. They had witnessed not just the growth of an elephant family, but the birth of a new era in wildlife conservation. The stars began to appear in the darkening sky as Rachel made her final notes for the day. The legacy of Eleanor's family had extended far beyond Yellowstone's boundaries, inspiring change across continents and generations. Their story had become a beacon of hope, showing how understanding, protection, and respect could ensure the survival of wildlife for years to come. Under the vast expanse of the Wyoming sky, Eleanor's family settled into their evening formation. Their silhouettes stood proud against the twilight, a living testament to the power of family bonds and the importance of preservation. The quiet strength of their unity echoed through the valley, a reminder of nature's resilience when given the chance to thrive. As night fell over Yellowstone, the research team prepared to end another day of observation. They knew that tomorrow would bring new insights, new challenges, and new opportunities to learn from this remarkable family. The story of Eleanor and her children had become more than just a tale of survival. It had evolved into a symphony of hope for the future of wildlife conservation. The gentle rumbles of elephant communication carried through the evening air, a sound that had become synonymous with success against all odds. It was a reminder that every individual, every family, and every species deserved the chance to tell their own story, to overcome their challenges, and to thrive in their own unique way. Dear listeners, we hope that Eleanor's family's journey has touched your hearts as deeply as it has touched ours. Their story of resilience, family bonds, and triumph continues to inspire wildlife conservation efforts worldwide. To follow more extraordinary tales of nature's wonders, please find our specially curated playlist by clicking the link to your left. If Eleanor's story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore the remarkable complexity of wildlife and the importance of preservation. Share your thoughts and feelings about Eleanor's family in the comments below. Your voice matters in the ongoing conversation about wildlife conservation. Join us tomorrow for another unforgettable journey into the heart of nature's most inspiring stories.